base of the Kilimanjaro lie the vast plains of Kenya, a most unique region. It is home to the biggest concentration of wild animals on the planet. The uncontested star of this wild universe is the lion, one of the most spectacular predators in the world. For thousands of years, the lion has been haunting these most diverse landscapes as the sole, undisputed ruler of this continent. The most powerful of African carnivores doesn't have enemies, with the exception of one, man. Despite the colossal size of the lion's kingdom, he shares this land with the Maasai. Today, Kenya has become a favorite destination for nature aficionados. The Tsavo and Amboseli National Parks and the Maasai Mara Serengeti ecosystem attract thousands of tourists each year, all seeking the big African thrill. Here, wildlife preservation and protection is a tradition, and the lion has been the object of many studies over the last 50 years. The king of the savannah allows himself to be observed, and rare are the times when tourists miss the occasion to admire him. Who could ever imagine that a new drama is unfolding behind the scenes, turning the most powerful of predators into a victim? According to the biologist Lawrence Frank, a preservation specialist, this situation is misleading and hides a much more alarming truth.
Well, everybody knows that the tiger in Asia is down to a few national parks. It's in terrible trouble. But most people felt that lion populations were okay. And that's because in national parks they are okay. Lions, like most other carnivores, are very successful animals. If people leave them alone and if there's adequate prey, lions do extremely well. So you can go to almost any national park in Africa and see plenty of lions. But of course, the tourists moving between national parks, and surprisingly, even most conservationists 10 years ago hadn't realized that between the national parks, lions are in very, very big trouble. Here in Kenya 15 years ago, there were plenty of areas far from national parks where you could go and hear lions at night or find footprints during the day. You were aware that lions were still widespread. Today that's not true. They've been drastically reduced almost everywhere except the few national parks. And this is the case throughout Africa.
Although lions reproduce without difficulty, the fact is that they were estimated at 1 million at the beginning of the century for the entirety of the continent, and today they are only 30,000.
With the exception of Tanzania, very, very few countries have significant lion populations outside of national parks. Well, you might ask, if they're doing okay in national parks, why is there a problem? Well, population biologists, geneticists know very well that small populations isolated from other small populations aren't going to last very, very long. Genetic inbreeding will impact small populations very quickly.
In order to safeguard the lion's health and vigor, as well as that of other wild animals living in the parks, it's necessary to create protected corridors that travel between the different reserves. However, with the African desert slowly expanding, and the once green pastures shrinking, and waterholes drying up under the pressure of a population in constant growth, wildlife is paying the price. Once the competition for natural resources settles, carnivores become enemies, and herbivores become rivals. At the base of the Chiulu Hills, situated between Tsavo and Amboseli parks, there is a group of men struggling against this plague. It is in the Mbirikani district, in the heart of Maasai land, that Richard Bonham initiated a preservation program known as the Maasai Land Preservation Trust.
Scoot! Scoot, scoot, change! Stand still! Morning, sir.
Morning.
Behind me, sir, is the Rhino Squad unit ready for inspection, sir.
As a safari coordinator, Richard Bonham is in daily contact with the region's wildlife. Poaching is a menace to his professional activity, so he has established a private patrol called Game Scouts, who protect the animals.
Yeah, when we first came here about 24 years ago, there was a little bit of poaching going on, and we started seeing snares around. So we employed a couple of warriors, not in uniform, anything. We just sent them out into the hills and gave them an incentive. Every time they brought in a snare, we'd give them 30 shillings or something. And that operated like that for a couple of years. And then we started finding more and more snares. Poaching started getting worse. So we employed more. And slowly, over the years, they've become more and more professional. Now we're in a situation where we have about 63 scouts. They're split into different teams. We've got one team that just does rhino monitoring and security. Then we've got a mobile team that goes out as they're called in. And then another team based up in the hills. When we started, it was mainly just picking up snares, making the occasional arrest. In our first proper year of operation, I think we arrested 22 people. In 2008, we made 228 prosecutions. They're poachers that we actually took to court. Out of those, maybe only 20 were Maasai. The rest are the outside tribes on our border coming in to poach.
The majority of the men hired by Richard are Maasai, as they benefit from a wide local network of informants who can help them in their mission. This morning, a poacher was spotted in their area. A search is activated, and very soon the squad discovers the first traps.
Romeo Bravo, Oscar Charlie.
Go ahead, Oscar Charlie.
Roger, we are just behind Lengaloriti Hill, and we found some snares, very fresh. So if possible, we do request tracker dogs as soon as possible.
Okay, well done. I'll get the tracker dogs down straight away. We'll probably be with you in about an hour.
Roger, copy, sir. Standing by.
The moment he gets his harness on, he's ready for work. So we'll take him and we'll pick up the tracks of the poachers, he'll get the scent, and then we'll let him go.
Snaring is terribly important. 30 years ago, there was very little bushmeat trade here in Kenya. Today, it's very big. Vast areas of Kenya have been essentially cleared of wildlife by people putting wire nooses out in the bush to catch antelope to sell as meat. This had an immense impact on vast areas, not only because it eliminates lion prey, but also many lions and hyenas and leopards and wild dogs and other carnivores are caught and killed in these dreadful snares that are littered in the bush everywhere.
Poaching is a real sore for wildlife defenders. But as Richard Bonham pointed out, Maasai rarely practice it themselves. Their main activity has always been livestock farming. Following the seasonal migrations, they build temporary villages protected by walls built of acacia branches, a common yet very useful tree of the African bush. Bomas, or the compounds in which the animals are enclosed at night, are built in a similar fashion. The sharp thorns of the acacias keep lions and other predators from approaching. Unfortunately, both the lands of the Maasai and those of the felines are shrinking considerably. And this new proximity of man and beast generates growing conflicts. As Mokoe Lekanaya attests,
Napo ngangiri na ikara ninapo naripiro lopen ngaraki lowera amenyar lowera nge nae etii kulo sero ikiningito haibu ore nari ero heba nang ne engrendene nalau nara naika amu era nara ero hangkang naninga kangkang nkishu adiruriere napuku ore taa paapuku naning'aka ajo etii paisidio entoki natii ene. Ore taata peeyau nang'or taata lowero aimie empere nini metaa inewueji apa eima ore tenkakenya nikisuj nikijo enchom etu enaa kake etaa naa sii ore etua nikijo ng'urai eeta kula ore neeta kula naa torrono naa amu eiba naa lashumba eninepu lowero eeta kula otua nesuju neponu naa taata aponu naponu aibung naa eni nepuo taa taata napuo aibung naponu kenya alaku kake nkishu taa timirakaki naalakuni taa metaa nijia taa pikununo.
Contrary to what McCoy thinks, the collars worn by the animals aren't a mark of ownership. They're actually scientific equipment used by Lawrence Frank's team. The massive decline of the lion's population in the 90s has driven Frank to set up a new program called Living with Lions, aimed at better understanding the cohabitation problems that have arisen between felines and farmers. In order to do this, he has put together a team of young biologists, including Alain Cotterill, Stephanie Dollenry, and Leela Hazza, assisted by two Kenyans, Anthony Kasanga and Stephen Ekwanga.
I'll never come across that line.
For his part, Richard Bonham has found an ally in Tom Hill, a friend and businessman living in the Chiulo Mountains.
When Richard and I were running our conservation program at the beginning of this decade, we were principally worried about poaching. And we had this Game Scout network that we were building up to fight the poaching trade. And that was working, and we thought things were going along pretty well. And then suddenly our scouts began to report all these lions being killed, not only by spearing, but by poisoning, and at a rate that was unsustainable. We lost 22 lions that we know of in 18 months just on this ranch. And that was heading toward near-term extinction.
Over the last 50 years, Kenya's population grew from 7 to 35 million inhabitants. These fast-growing demographics are not without consequence on the wildlife. Predators, who represent a permanent threat to livestock, are in the line of fire and are threatened with extinction. Elephants, rhinoceroses, hippopotami, and giraffes are all facing the same grueling destiny. The future of the lion's natural prey, buffaloes, gnus, and gazelles of all kinds, is no different from that of the king of animals. Today, 25 species of antelopes are on the list of endangered species.
When wild prey goes down, of course, predators turn to livestock. As human populations increase, livestock populations increase, more and more people and cattle and goats and sheep in the drier parts of the country, which can't really support this livestock. The wild prey goes, the predators turn to livestock, and of course people retaliate. And these days, retaliation against predators is terribly simple. When a lion or a leopard or hyena kills a large animal, usually the kill isn't finished that first night, so the animal will come back the next evening. Well, all the livestock owner has to do is sprinkle some poison on that carcass, and any predator that comes back to feed on it is killed.
This is the last great pride of lions of the Chulu Hills. And I took this picture in 2000 and spent a couple of mornings with them. They were out here on the plain. There were 9 lions in this pride. And one day in early 2003, they were all poisoned to death by one man because they'd killed one cow. It was the last great pride we had here. We haven't seen anything like this since 2003. This is a lion poisoned by a product called Faradan, which is the poison being used mostly in this area to kill great cats. Very lethal. Kills lions within less than 2 hours. Very painful death. And it is very cheap and easily available in areas where it has no agricultural purpose. It's simply here to kill cats. And it's very effective at doing it. The Maasai face a very, very challenging way of life. I mean, they live with these wild animals that are highly dangerous: lions, leopards, cheetahs, hyena, buffalo, elephants. It is easy for us in the first world to sit and watch television and see these beautiful animals on television screens, but to live with them on the ground without weapons, it's something you must consider very seriously when you start talking about encouraging them not to kill these animals. Would you not kill them? The Europeans did, the Americans did, the Australians have. The Africans, at least in this part of Africa, haven't. They're the last people on earth that haven't killed the great mammals and predators of the world. So the question we were faced with was, what do you do with this situation? So in late 2002, we began to meet with the local leadership, the elders, the warriors, to represent the whole community. And we basically put the same question to all of them, which was, what would it take to cause you to quit killing lions? And the answer was fairly obvious. You know, it was just simply, well, if you paid us for our lost livestock, we would quit killing these animals because we just don't like losing our assets, and we can't afford to lose our cows because they're worth too much money. And that was a new use of the word money in this culture, that they were now seeing their livestock as cash. That changes attitudes. So we began to discuss the terms and conditions under which a balance could be created between compensating the Maasai for their lost livestock and at the same time making sure that it was a legitimate claim and that in return for that compensation, lion killing and predator killing would stop. To implement a program of compensation, the first thing that we agreed was that the ranch itself, 300,000 acres, was too big to consider it as one thing. So we divided the ranch into zones. We have 8 zones on the ranch, and those are more local communities, and each one of which is responsible for the behavior of its people. And then we, of course, require verification. So when an animal is killed and is reported to us by what we call a predator scout who lives in that zone, then we bring a team to that site like a crime scene, and they do a verification process on tracks and the marks on the animal and the situation so that we know exactly the circumstances under which this animal was killed and what predator killed that animal. If everything is verified to our satisfaction, the verifying officer issues a promissory note. That note is not transferred into cash until the end of a 2-month period. That gives us the opportunity to impose a rule, which is if anyone kills a lion during that 2-month period, all credit notes are invalid. So if your neighbor or your neighbor's son decides to go out and kill a lion, you will suffer for it. Therefore, it is your job as a Maasai to make sure your neighbor, the people who live in your zone, do not violate the rules. That's the balance point between compensating every individual who loses and protecting all the lions at the same time.
No lion has been killed in the last 2 months. Debilitated farmers can receive indemnities for the damages caused by the predators. Some farmers have left their villages in the middle of night and walked many miles to obtain reimbursement. Most of the farmers don't know how to read or write, but they all seem reassured as they go over the form handed them by the predator scout while he verifies their claim. The Maasai Land Preservation Trust Treasury reimburses only the farmers whose form corresponds to all of the indemnities criteria. The annual charges for reimbursements reach $60,000, expenses that don't include the daily operation charges and the game scout salaries. Richard Bonham has instituted a safari tax that allows him to cover some of these charges. The rest is covered thanks to generous donors and international organizations. If damage to the livestock is a result of the farmer's negligence, he will not receive any financial indemnity.
A compensation program obviously brings income into the community, income that wouldn't have otherwise existed. That income is largely converted back into livestock, and also if it works, you're going to have more predators. So you're going to have more livestock and more predators as a result of a successful compensation program. That increases the likelihood of conflict between the two. So other measures must be equally implemented to reduce the conflict as the numbers increase.
Because of these insurance policies, Richard Bonham and Tom Hill have managed to appease the farmers' rancor towards the Mbirikani lions. But 2006 has seen a sudden recrudescence of traditional lion chases. They know that in order to assure the wildcat's survival, mentalities need to be profoundly changed. They will turn to Lawrence Frank, whose Wildcats Research Center is located north of Nairobi, at the base of Mount Kenya in the Laikipia district. Laikipia is an unusual region. As opposed to the southern lands inhabited by the nomadic Maasai, this region is home to large-scale exploitation farms owned by white Kenyans who practice commercial livestock breeding. With the scientists' help, many of them have managed to reconcile livestock breeding and respect for the wildlife. This newfound consciousness has allowed them to develop quite a lucrative additional activity with tourism. The friendly relationship between Lawrence Frank and the farmers has proved fortuitous. Today, Laikipia is one of the rare unprotected areas where wildlife is rich and abundant. All the years of research on cohabitation between farmers and predators makes Lawrence Frank perfectly suitable to respond to the Maasai Land Preservation Trust's solicitation. It is the young biologist and Swahili-speaking Leela Hazar who will lead the investigation to understand why Maasai have developed this sudden intolerance toward lions. What drives the Morans to hunt?
That's what I've spent the last 4 years trying to understand. What actually motivates people to go out and kill a lion? Is it traditional killing, which is called a lamayo in Maasai? And a lamayo, actually, the actual meaning of a lamayo means it's kind of like a brave person, right? So what happens is a bunch of warriors, they go out, about 10 or 12 of them, and it's something that's very well planned. You know, it takes maybe a day or two to plan. And they go out together, and they kind of have an idea of where a lion might be because they hear it roaring the night before. But you see, also there could be a little bit of mixture of maybe that lion ate someone's livestock, so they're also upset. You see, so there's a little bit of something else going on. But the main force that's driving them to go out and kill is that they want to come back and show that they're brave to their community, that they were able to protect their community from these carnivores. It's a huge day for a warrior. The first Moran to actually spear the lion is then given a new name. So the name he's given at birth is dropped, the Christian name is dropped, and he's given a name that is said to be the name of the lion that he killed. And also, you know, they're fawned by all the women in the community. They're given gifts, sometimes goats, things like that. So it's a very, very big day for a Moran. And what's happened is in the last, I guess, 8 years or so in this ecosystem, there's been more and more conservation. I mean, it even started like 15 years ago, but there's been more efforts. So with more conservation, that type of lion killing has been reduced a little bit because the community doesn't really look upon a warrior that goes out and kills a lion as something that is brave or good anymore, because it's jeopardizing the benefits they might get from conservation.
Leila Hazar's research has led to one certainty. Without the Maasai's collaboration, all efforts would be in vain. She decides to launch a program that incorporates the mourns, an age class that is traditionally in charge of the protection of bomas and livestock. Torn between the appeal of the Western world and their profound attachment to their homeland, mourns are here offered the opportunity to stay at home while partaking in the 21st century. Assisted by Anthony Kasanga, Leila Hazar will raise awareness as to the importance of lions protection and will familiarize the mourns with GPS and telemetric antennas, the equipment necessary to locate the lions with collars.
Lion Guardians was formed in November 2006. We take mourns from the community, and they live in the community to come and work to conserve lions rather than killing. And the reason why we used mourns or warriors to be lion guardians is that they know where these lions are, using the old tradition of killing lions, going out, using trucks. And then, so we bring back that knowledge from using trucks to kill, but by using trucks to conserve.
Olubi has killed 7 lions by spear. The last one was a female. She was carrying 5 cubs. This episode was a turning point in the mourns' life. Since then, he has volunteered to be a lion guardian. This morning, he's tracking another lioness. The tracks that he discovers are those of a large feline who's gone by recently. Olubi patrols Namasai's territory. This lioness is raising 2 young cubs. Her collar is showing signs of frailty. This is why he must find her. The telemetric signal confirms that these are indeed Namasai's tracks. The Lion Guardian has sent Namasai's geographic coordinates to Stephanie and Stephen so that they can locate her.
So, Steph, we are heading the right way.
Okay.
The collar change will allow the scientists to evaluate Namasai's health since the cub's birth. In order to identify each lion with certitude, they each were given a different frequency. There is no doubt about it, Namasai is near. The information registered by the collar is brought to the Living with Lion headquarters. It is here where biologist Alain Cotterell selects, sorts, and interprets the signals.
The research that I'm personally involved with is basically trying to look at adaptations in lion behavioural ecology that allow them to survive alongside high densities of people and livestock that we have in this area. There's likely to be a cut-off point where the densities of people and livestock is too high and lions can't coexist at all, but here they are coexisting and we're trying to work out how that's happening. The main objective of this research is to basically try and understand how we can manage the lion population better, and also whether, areas where people and livestock coexist, if it's worth putting conservation money into these areas. Is it possible for lion to actually survive in areas with people and livestock long term? The lions in this area are very nervous because they've lived alongside people for a long time. There's been a lot of conflict. They've learned to hide themselves. Because of that, they're very difficult to actually research. So we have to use all sorts of different tools in order to do this. The main thing that we have to use is tracking devices. And so we've got VHF radio collars is the one that we use most, which is this one here. These emit a VHF signal which allow us to track into a lion and find it, but they don't tell us anything other than where the lion is, and we have to actively go there in order to find it and take a position. They're very useful for finding lions. This is the most exciting collar that we use, although it's very expensive. This is a GPS collar, and this actually records on it the movements of the lion. And this is fantastic because with nervous lions, you don't want to be near them because you change their behavior by being near them. So this collar will basically record their movements when we're not there. And then I can go in once a month or however frequently I want and get the data and see where that lion's been while I'm not watching it.
The Maasai is spotted. The jeep comes to a halt about 10 meters away from the lioness, the maximum distance necessary to aim the anesthetic dart with precision.
That's not her, that's not her. Oh yeah, I see her. I can't see it. 17:20. She's going down.
Using these GPS collars, basically we can get the lion movements over time. Then I can plot it on a map using this ArcGIS software, and then we can see where the lions are moving in relation to livestock, people, and other resources that they might use, such as cover and water. One of the interesting things about the lions in this environment is that in a protected area, they sort of choose what they're going to kill, sort of based on a combination of the density of the different species, how many there are of the different species, and how easy they are to catch. Judging this, in this area, these lions should all be eating cows because basically there's more cows than there is any other wildlife species, and they're the easiest thing in the world to catch. They're so stupid, I could catch one. And so basically these lions should be eating more cows than anything else, and yet they're hardly eating any cows at all, much lower proportions than would be expected. So they're obviously making their prey choices based on something other than the normal criteria that lions use, in a protected area.
Maasai is calm. The two cubs seem completely at ease with the human's proximity and with their mother's sudden apathy.
And in Laikipia, we're lucky because we have a sort of mosaic of different land use types, and on the map now I've got a section of Laikipia that we were actually in recently, Mugi Ranch, and you can see that surrounding Mugi Ranch are different land use types. So Mugi itself is a commercial ranch which is relatively safe for lions. They are very lion friendly, but surrounding it is pastoralist areas, and these areas have much higher conflict for lion. So when we plot the movement of lions, I'll just use one lion as an example here. This is one lioness, and you can see she's moving here and she's staying very much in the bounds of this commercial ranch area. If we only plot the movements of when she's outside. There's just a very few dots when she spends time in the pastoralist areas. And if we open the data that goes with these positions, we can see here that the times of those positions are all after dark. And we want to sort of know why that is. Is that because she understands that that's a high-risk area somehow? Or is it because there's less prey out there, or there's less cover, or something else that she needs? And so this is what we're measuring and trying to model to see whether they're assessing risk or whether they're just following other needs.
If telemetric is used as precious scientific information by the Laikipia researchers in the north, here in Chulu it is mostly a means of locating and monitoring the lions. Since the establishment of the patrols, the lion guardians have avoided many conflicts, and the farmers' rancor towards the lions seems to slowly diminish.
Usually when you start a program, it takes a long time for a community to accept a program. But with lion guardians, the difference was that not only are lion guardians going out to protect lions, but they're also out there to protect livestock. There was a very big draw to the community. You know, the lion guardians spend about half their time doing community work. They're known to be protecting their community, the same as mourns used to do when they go out and kill the lions. But instead of killing them, they're protecting them. That is bringing more benefits to their community. And so, even just to go around with backpacks and this gear, they feel very proud. It's kind of following, you know, this whole idea of westernization and more development that's occurring in Maasai land, that they're keeping up with it. And they are still brave because they're going out in the bush alone, tracking lions.
Abandoned to her fate, Maasai has finally fallen asleep. The little ones and the other females have found refuge in the bushes. During the intervention, the lioness will remain conscious of the men's presence, and Olubi prefers to veil her eyes.
One of the major things is that when we're going out to collar a lion, it's that same excitement they feel when they're going out on a lamayo, on a lion hunt. It's that same feeling. They're very excited, and they've been tracking the lion for days, so they know exactly where it is. They go and they get some bait. They put the bait up. They sit and they watch. They set the traps. We do the call-in. And once that lion is darted, it's the greatest day for them. Because instead of them getting a name, they give the lion the name. That everybody in the community knows that they gave the lion that name. And they're able to touch that lion. But what's really interesting is that they're touching it and it's not dead this time. They can feel the heartbeat. And that's a whole feeling. They never thought that they'd get that close to a living, you know, a lion that's still alive.
Olubi's perception has changed. The lion is no longer an enemy that must be slain, but rather a familiar animal deserving of the same care and respect as that of his own livestock. Maasai is in good health, but only the results of the laboratory analysis in the United States will confirm it. During this privileged instant where man and wildcat are reconciled, Olubi, like all mourns, will not forget the traditional hunting rituals.
That means it's good luck.
Why should we as Westerners want to preserve wildlife in Africa? Well, the selfish reason perhaps is because we want to be able to go and look at it, because we want to be able to watch it on television, we want to see magnificent wildlife films. I think it goes very, very much deeper than that. It might not be easy to come up with hard economic reasons, but we have changed the surface of the earth so fast, so dramatically with increasing human populations that we're rapidly making it unlivable, not only for the rest of wildlife, but for ourselves. And I believe that the earth has to support the rest of creation if it's still going to support humans.
Kasi mera ora ba ne lai kya rapa na lenga ba sara sapu olu garak mu ranga sapa narra bi dole na ko meti lo garak mo ranga sapa nikya niki joke shu ka tokol na rore mera rapa kya rira ra thore mera rapa kya na ba be ye ito hinjele ngamure ni mapa angkairo kinchori rana nara ke hinje ake kirwa pala mugra do aduboro logara amu kagmo kangirina hemesumai tankara ki logara grito di enkerenye keltongani ngora logara ngara ki enkerenye gira ara poshere teltongani somme na ole sommerai tankara kitara nasiai na kiriro logarak tangara ki erado hindi logarak do kaida sininta nang shinara maraya nangule amu tenememiri na yaka na ki idima sinda ragumok na bani yaka nava ne digiro ya daladio sidaya ni ke pala ke na ibe
Without a large-scale international operation, lions will soon be extinct. Lawrence Frank's, Richard Bottom's, and Tom Hill's sole efforts will not suffice to guarantee the lion's victory in what could very well be the last battle for the king of beasts.
Last New Year's Eve, we were all in camp and we got a report that there'd been poisoned lions on the border between this group ranch and the next group ranch. It was a male and a female, and the male we immediately saw had a collar on and immediately recognized as the big male of the area. He was sort of the biggest and most well-known of all the males that we had on Ambericani. All the communities knew him. Everyone talked of Singale, Singale.
He was probably the most loved lion. I never thought a community would respect a lion that much and care for a lion that much, because it's, again, you always think, well, Maasai just want to get rid of these carnivores. This lion, to the Maasai, he was very respectful. He didn't eat people's livestock. He came close to communities, he would roar, but he only ate prey. There was very few instances when he ate livestock. So they thought that he also had a respect for them, all right? And so when he died, when he was killed, the community actually mourned him, which is, we've never seen anything like that. It was like someone's favorite cow almost being killed. It was a really big deal. And even, Koikai, our lion guardian, a week or two after Sangale was poisoned, he had a baby boy, and he named his baby boy Sangale.